Um, it's a pleasure having you guys with us today. We are going to talk about performance in Agile, performance trending, and Jenkins plugin, as Aliza mentioned. So the presentation basically will consist from some incentives in the product level and the rationale behind the steps that we are taking in Performance Center in order to adjust to the DevOps and to the Agile world, as well as some practical examples that Moran is going to share with us. So in terms of the agenda, just in order for us to be on the same page, I'd like to just state what DevOps for us means, and then how it impacts Performance Center. Also, I'd like to introduce the performance trending capabilities within Performance Center. These are not new capabilities. They exist in the product starting 12.55, but we did some enhancements in order to make it more easily used for the benefit of our customers. Then I'd like to show you how you can benefit from this, from the trending application data, also within the Jenkins plugin. And finally, Moran is going to tell about the transition to Agile for our internal performance testing team. So before we dive into the details, I'd like to make sure that everyone is aware of the wealth and new and enhanced functionality that we have in 12.55. I consider 12.55 as a revolutionary release because we have started our shift left in terms of capabilities, introducing a lot of new and powerful features to accommodate the DevOps world and much more than that. So you're more than welcome to evaluate these new features in our online help pages, as well as in the social channels. Our next subsequent releases that are built on top of 12.55 are pushing it even further and introducing very nice capabilities, which unfortunately I'm not allowed to share right now, but very significant steps forward. All right, so what DevOps means for us, at least. Basically, it's an extension to Agile development. It is pretty similar to Agile development at nature, only that collaboration between the various parties of the organization is much tighter between the development and the operation organizations. Companies that are taking that to extreme are actually, they have a single team that is handling all of it, like both the development aspects and the operation. The same people are doing both. Sorry for that. So basically, it's a lot about automation. So you would like to deliver fast, you would like to deliver small chunks and to put them in the production, to deploy them in the production as fast as possible. So you need to automate the entire flow. I'm not going to dive into the DevOps chain and all of the tools that are involved over there, but basically, I believe that you understand what I mean over here. So it's a lot about automation. So obviously, it has a tremendous impact on all of the performance testing tools in the world, including Performance Center. So what does it mean for us as an R&D team, as a product team? Basically, what we would like to facilitate is the ability to integrate with the DevOps pipeline. We would like to supply iterative performance testing capabilities in order to measure the application performance over time. We would like to allow our customers to use open source tools in order to leverage assets that are coming not only from the performance engineering team, but also from QA team or developers and so on. In order to allow faster configuration of tests and less manual labor before running a load test, we would like to support also on-demand resource allocation. So from that perspective, 12.55 provides you the capability to use Dockerized load generators, kind of a more API approach. But in the next version, we are going to introduce some more meaningful capabilities around that also from the user interface. And finally, but not less important, is APIs, because our capability as an R&D team is limited at the end of the day to supply a certain amount of capabilities. But a main guideline for us is to open as many APIs as we can in order to allow you guys to do whatever we didn't accomplish externally and use Performance Center as an engine. From use case point of view, we're looking on two main use cases. The first one and the most important one is continuous integration, where we actually would like to accommodate application teams to drive their performance tests, their load tests, using Performance Center as an engine, but either using a CI tool plugin or using the REST interface and some custom implementation of the customer. With regards to the CI plugins, we already started working on more plugins. Today we will focus on Jenkins, but our guideline and design point for each and every plugin that we will, for each and every CI tool that we will create a plugin in the future, is basically the same approach. Another very important use case is to accommodate developer-oriented tests. So basically, developers usually they would like to stay within their own IDE and drive the test from there, either in API level, microservices, component level, and so. So the use case is almost similar to the one that we described in the continuous integration, only that the driver for the test is the IDE. Not all these capabilities that I'm talking about is actually already in the product. I'm just sharing, generally speaking, what we aim for, and we are progressing very nicely towards accomplishing those. All right, let's talk about trending and or iterative performance testing. When you are working in a DevOps and in Agile development lifecycle, you need to start testing as soon as possible, and you need to measure changes as they come in order to detect and to track regressions as soon as possible. That way, the fixing regressions is much easier. So two main comparison methods should be applied from that point of view. The ability to compare today's build with a previous one, and so on, and also to compare with a baseline, which is probably the one that is currently deployed in production. So you don't want to introduce regression comparing to the production deployment, but you also want to track the regressions as they come between one build to another. So this is two important requirements. Another requirement is that you need to manage all that in some spreadsheet. Most customers that I saw are using Excel spreadsheet for that. So this is one method of doing that. You can also use Performance Center. Those who are already doing that, great. Those who don't, this is the opportunity to learn how to do that. And finally, you want to do all that in an automatic way, repetitively and systematically. So automatically, obviously, because otherwise it wouldn't fit into the Agile and DevOps approach. Repetitively and systematically is important because you would like to compare apple to apple, and you would like to detect regressions as they come. And if it's not repetitive, if the test is not repetitive, and if it's not systematic, then it will be very hard to understand whether it is a regression or not. All right, let's see a short demo overview for that. So I'm going to use our performance team performance center instance in order to demonstrate that. And I'm going to highlight also a few of the capabilities that we introduced in the last version. So as I said earlier, trending feature was already available for us in previous versions. But we saw that not many customers are using it, and we suspect that the reason for which it was not used is because it's a bit challenging to use it from usability point of view. So what we did is we actually tied the trending with the test itself. So if you want to trend a test automatically without all of the manual steps that are involved with it, what you need to do is basically to open this option from the test design, turn off the automatic trending, associate the test with a particular trend report, whether a new one that you would like to create, that you would like Performance Center to create for you, or an existing one that you already have. Once you do that, you define also the time range that you want to break out of the test result, like if you want to trim the ramp up and ramp down in order to focus on the steady state, and a few more definitions. Everything is documented and you can read, pretty straightforward, and that's it. From that point on, any test run that you are going to run is will be automatically added to this trend report. And when you also connect that to Jenkins, you will get the data in Jenkins, and we'll see that later, automatically, which is very easy, and you get exactly what you need in order to detect the regressions without even interacting with the application. So there are a few steps that you need to do, and then you are set from there. We also invested a lot of effort. I'm not sure if I'll actually show that, but we also invested a lot of effort in exposing the trending application APIs, so you can get all the data regardless of Jenkins. You can get all the data from a particular run on your own, and plug it into whatever system you would like to, and conduct the trending over there as well. So for that, you basically need to interact with the Performance Center REST APIs, but all of the data is available for you. So let's see, this is the trending application. Basically, you see that our performance team used that a lot. We'll just use one of these reports in order to demonstrate some of the capabilities. So this trend report consists of, you see here, different tabs. The first tab is a trend overview, where you can see high-level metrics of each one of the trended runs. So each row actually represents a run over here, and this row, for example, is the baseline. I can dynamically modify the baseline by just clicking over here, and then we will see later, like all of the trends and comparisons are calculated dynamically for you based on this, based on the baseline selection, and that's also available again in REST API for you to consume automatically if you wish. You can also control the runs order within the trend, because if you wanna compare one run comparing to another, and you need to modify the order of the runs in order to see the comparison. So this can be easily done by just moving the run down, and then you can compare it. You can also control the trend thresholds. For each measurement, you can control what's considered to be an improvement, what percentage of basically considered to be an improvement, or minor regression, major regression, and so on. So, and you get all of the data that is available for you in the analysis application. You get it also over here in the trend report. I'll show some examples soon. Also, for your convenience, you can rename the runs to a more meaningful ones, just in order to to make sense. Let's say that this run is the production drop. Then I'm going to I can change that, and that will be available. I'm not going to change this one particular because this is the production environment for our performance team, so they kindly allowed me to use it. But you can see just from the capabilities that it's very rich in capability. So in the trend, in the high-level metrics, it's basically considering the overall metrics and the amount of transaction totally. Now, if I want to drill down into some more details, so I can see the list of all of the transactions in the response time in percentile and the 19th percentile, and then I can see colors and trends comparing to the baseline. I can modify the widget to compare not to the baseline, to compare to the previous run. And then you see that each one of the runs basically is being compared to the previous one. And by that, you are getting this information already from here. Obviously, this information can be exported in the widget level. It can be exported to a CSV file for you to take it outside of it. It is exportable also to a PDF file from this button over here. Moran is going to show an example later. You can customize the widgets to show more data. Like in this case, the PCOE team over here chose to trend CPU utilization and memory. You can select measurements, and in the measurement selection, you get all of the measurements, and you can also apply regular expression on this list in order to slice only a portion of it. And as I said, if you monitor it using the native Windows resources monitor or the Unix resources monitor of Performance Center or some other monitoring capabilities like New Relic and Dynatrace, those will be available for you here as well. So all of the metrics and all of the dimensions, it's really up to you. You can customize it once and then you get it systematically. Moreover, you can also add additional tabs with additional content, modify the views to whatever, the display settings to all of the different types and so on. So it's pretty flexible. To be honest, from functionality perspectives and from REST API perspective, it actually, all of the capabilities are exposed and available for you. I really think that the main use case should be to configure it once, and then once it is configured, you can continue and using it from Jenkins. So let's see that. So I'm going to show you a demo project. Basically, the Performance Center Jenkins plugin is part of a larger plugin that includes other capabilities of additional application delivery management of Micro Focus. So the Performance Center plugin is, I'll describe it shortly over here, but if you wanna read about it, then all you need to do is just click on the help section. You reach to the wiki, and then in here you see running performance test using HPE Performance Center. Once you do that, you get very clear instructions of what you need to do in order to configure your job. and what kind of post-build actions and how you can configure the trending charts within Jenkins itself. So in this particular example, let's highlight a few of the additions that we have done in parallel to 1255 development. But actually, the plugin exists from earlier versions of Performance Center, I believe starting version 12 even. Some of the functionality is more updated if you have 1255 deployment. Like for example, you don't some usability improvement that automatically selection of the test instance ID that you're going to run, and the more meaningful is actually the trend reports configuration. So all the trend report configuration is basically done with integration with another plugin that we've leveraged, the Plots plugin. The Plots plugin allows you to feed it with data, with CSV files, and then it knows how to visualize that. So again, as I said earlier, all these, how to use that exactly, it is documented very, very well. What you get out of it eventually is something like that. You can basically trend, you get the trending data, the same trending data that you're getting in Performance Center. You get it also from Jenkins. You can configure to measure the, to trend the average, the 90th percentile, transaction per second, and so on. So both performance characteristics and workload characteristics, you can trend all of it, and you don't need to even to log into Performance Center in order to do that. So this is a very powerful capability that can allow you to provide your customers with all this information without even knowing what Performance Center is. So this is basically the demo that I wanted to show. Again, everything is documented very well and on how to use that. So I'd like to give Moran the opportunity to share his experience, his team experience with adjusting, with aligning to the Agile story.
Thank you, Shlomi. Hi, my name is Moran Levy from the Micro Focus Performance Center of Excellence team. And our team is consistent of a cross-group team, which is relevant to three pillars of product groups: the application management, performance testing, and the functional testing. Each of the group members consists of specific expertise in some of the areas that you might see on the screen now, but all of the team members are familiar with all of those technologies. So we used to work in a Waterfall environment a few years ago, and when we did so, we had a 12-month release, and we used to consume only stable builds for performance testing. And each of the parts of the stages of the release, we did a different thing. On the planning, we only design and POC, and we established KPIs. On the deployment, we did some regression and new feature, and stabilization. We did other tests that need to be completed in order to release the product. But it was and each of the stages we do a few things. And during the time we used to have the same data load, the same script, and the same scenario for all the 12 months release. For example, we used to have a regression and new feature every 2 to 4 weeks, endurance only after code freeze, single user only after code freeze, and of course benchmark after GA. This is the same we do now. When we moved to Agile, we did the same thing, but we used to have it in a much shorter period of time. because the release was 4 to 6 weeks time, and we need to adapt to using in this tight schedule to do everything in those four weeks. So the first thing we did is to move to an early drop of a build, not necessarily a stable build each time. And from time to time, even the data and the script were changed. The data load itself was changed as it does on the production itself. So we did everything, but in a much shorter periods. For example, endurance, a single user, a new feature we did every 2 weeks. We do every 2 weeks now. Scale test is a bit something that we can postpone for later on, so we do it every two releases, about 8 weeks, and benchmark only after major changes. What I just mentioned had to force us to move to automation so we can accomplish all of our tasks in this short time, which means we need to automate the environment. We move to a nightly load test, and we use new tools like Jenkins, the trend report, which we used before, but now it did help us to accomplish this automation much quicker than before. And of course, using TrueClient as the single user client-side performance testing. In order, when we moved to automation, it was a very difficult task, and we would like to share some best practices that we managed to establish during this time. So the first thing, if you're going to move to automating load test, the first thing is to keep it simple. Keep it as simple as possible and do some small autonomous steps like they do in Agile development. Start with only deploying a few scripts and very few user per script, a very simple load test, and then moving on to sending email. But every step, just finish it like they do in Agile, and try to do the principle of done is done, and move on to the next step. And again, just keep it simple. Try to use your existing knowledge and tools to start up the process. You don't. We used to try to first to learn the new tools and new practice before running it, and we ended up of learning a new tool like Jenkins instead of running the automation process. And as to it, if it doesn't work around it. Don't insist of trying to make the Jenkins do whatever you want. If you can do it by shell script or by PowerShell script, do it by PowerShell script. If you can do it by script, even for a web protocol script, do it with web protocol script. Stick with what you know, just to make the automation process run. Then afterwards, learn the tool and make the process a bit richer with the tools that you learn on the way. But don't insist of working on specific tool or technology. You don't need a full-blown load test. You need a simple load test. A simple, a maintainable load test, something that you will not fail each time because some REST API was broken or some extra fields were introduced. Keep it to as simple as possible, the load test itself, as well as all the other stuff that I mentioned before. Another thing that we noticed that if you are going to do a database upgrade, it might fail the whole process. We are doing a data population from scratch every time that we run the nightly process, because when we try to upgrade an existing database, the whole test was failing again and again on the upgrade itself, and we end up of doing a functional testing of the upgrade instead of doing a load test. And the main thing is to remember, any feedback is a good feedback. You need to have a test result, even if it's partial, even if it's a failed test, even if it's not comparable test. The result and the feedback that you pass to the development, it's very important, and it's the key factor here. For example, if the whole test fail, but one subsystem still runs, give it to the guys that run the subsystem that everything is okay, considering that either it fail, or even if you have a problem there, just show them the problem. And again, you don't need to run the full-blown load test. Start with a small subsystem, 1-2 user scenario, and then move on, thickening the process and thickening the load test itself. For example, this is how we do it in the product that we test nightly. The first thing is that a job on the Jenkins is triggered currently by scheduled tests, but in the near future is going to be a part of the build itself, the Jenkins building the code, and then in the end it will trigger a load test, which first will uninstall and clean the environment, and then install the latest build from scratch, clean install. Then we're going to run a data population scenario using the performance center, and the Jenkins plugin will invoke the performance center load test on performance center. And after the data population is done successfully, we will run a short 1.5 hours load test, again using the performance center Jenkins plugin. The load test itself is completely synthetic. It is not a real-world scenario. It is the important is that it is simple and easy to maintain. It's not going to be a full-blown, as I mentioned before, and it's not going to be a real world. It's something synthetic. Only take those 10 REST main path and run it together for a period of time with fixed pacing and fixed think time, so no randomization whatsoever will be on the process itself. So the load tests from night to night will be comparable to one another, and no load test issue of randomization which will cause you to investigate the load test itself. Then the Jenkins plugin will add the load test to trend report, which is already exists in the performance center, and we are going to write a bit of a code to take the assets that are saved by the performance center Jenkins plugin, and we'll process it into a mail, including the trend report itself, and send it to the stakeholders, showing let's hope the improvement overnight of the code, but sometimes it's going to be a regression. The results itself are, of course, the transaction response time, simple system resources that we would like to share with everybody. For example, only the CPU usage of the application server or the database, and the heap size used, and availability as shown by Shlomi before on the overview. Let me show you some demo of what we are doing. So I'm using the actual Jenkins itself that we use. So I have few jobs here which are autonomous jobs, and will all be consumed by the root job. The root job itself will first, for those of you who doesn't know Jenkins, the main thing to know here that there are two parts important here: the build part and the post-build action. And on the build part, we're going to clean the environment and install a new fresh build. Later on, we're using the Jenkins plugin. We're going to do the first data population stage, and hopefully, if it's going to run successfully, we're going to move to the second data population script, again running the Jenkins, the Performance Center Jenkins plugin. If the second data population is success, we're going to run the third step again using the Jenkins plugin, and we're going to run the load test itself, and the Jenkins plugin will automatically add it to the trend report number 21 in this case, and it will run for 1.5 hours. The time slot is a bit longer to make sure that the analyze will done successfully. And as a post-build action, we are using a send to mail generic job on the Jenkins, which can be used by all of our performance engineers to send the same report with the same format, which getting a parameter. In this case, the parameters are where the summary report, where is the trend report, to who to send to, who's sending from, and the mail subject, which is sent by the Jenkins job itself. The result will be, is it open? Let's open it. Here is a sample result. I think it is a few days ago, The first thing that we do, we cut from the trend report itself. We cut the graph that shows the regression itself, and we put it on the mail as the first thing that everybody should see. And you can easily see, for example, that on the 2nd of November, we had a bit of a regression there, which was fixed the next night. We are using, because of the bulk operation are masquerading the regular operation, we are using two trend views. We separate the TRT to a simple TRT and a bulk TRT, but you can do it in a one graph if it doesn't, if you don't have the same case that we do. Afterwards, we have a short overview of the run, and then we have the summary report itself from the Performance Center inserted into the mail. We do change a few things that are not suitable for the mail format. We change the color and we remove the links. It's a very simple shell script in this case, or a PowerShell script, because we use both of the environments. And then you have the SLA itself. It looks a bit different than it used to be on the summary report, but it's good enough to show if it meets the SLA or not, and when. And then we have the actual response time and the summary of each transaction. The trend report itself, it is attached to the mail. A few words about the trend report itself. We are working with the Performance Center development team to customize the trend report to suit our needs and to see if it will suit other customers as well. So it is a customizable trend report, but I believe that at least some of the features here you're going to see in the next release or two. So the trend report itself that is sent, when it opens, let's do it again. Okay, so you have the trend overview as Shlomi showed you before. The most important thing is to see that the transactions are comparable and the hits per second, success rate, and the error per second are comparable from one test to another. And then you see the graph itself and the transaction response time as a table which is compared to previous. The reason that we are using compared to previous is because this is a nightly report. This is not a regular release report, and the scope of the regression here is night to night, and not a full. This is the.
I think this one is a different copy, but
no, the caption here is wrong, but this is it's a caption that I inserted by a mistake.
Okay.
But it's not. It's compared to the previous. You can see by here. It's compared to previous and not compared to baseline as stated here. And you can see that you can quite easily when you have a regression or an improvement, a night that it is improved, and which transactions are improved or gotten worse. You can see it by numbers or by a percentage of difference between the two builds, the previous one. Also, as I said, we separate the bulk TRT from the regular TRT, and on the bottom we have a simple resources report. In this case, only DB and application server CPU, and a JMX metric for heap used by the application. Okay. One more thing that I want to elaborate here. We are cutting the images from the trend report itself, but I think that on the next release, you're going to be able to download the graph itself without the trend report, only parts of it from the REST API.
So at the moment, it's going to be possible to get all the data and do whatever you want with it, but definitely per your request, we will consider also allowing that using the API, of course.
One more thing, that when you are moving to Agile, most of you are going to have an environment which is already loaded. It is loaded with real-time feedback, and this is the production environment. The only thing that you need to have it is to establish a few monitors on it by using Google Analytics or Micro Focus Real User Monitor or any other monitor that you need, and you have some more feedback that is very valuable for development, and even for you to align your load test accordingly to the production load. I would like to mention that we did some customization. If you need any help with customization or you are interested in it, we would love to share it with you. Just contact the mail for this presentation, the PLV cost, and we'll help you to assist you.